My name is Kyle Royer.
Oh, it's hot. It's really hot.
And I'm making my second ever sword named Excelsior.
It's even more steel than I used on my first sword.
So let's embark together on this epic edged adventure. In this video, we're gonna shape every part of the handle on Excelsior. We've got a lot to do, so let's jump right into it. The pommel nut is shaped. I want to get the front spacer shaped, and then I can move on to the handle material, and then we can do the guard, and then we'll have all the fittings shaped all the way. This front spacer is a pretty complicated shape to do, so I've been really taking my time and spending a lot of time on it actually. I've got some bevels on here. I've got a 45-degree bevel on the front of it. This is the front towards the blade. And then I've got like a, I don't know, 15, 20-degree angle here. And then I've got a really sharp angle right here for this little bevel that's gonna meet right up against the handle material. These other bevels are gonna get all blended in and it'll be real nice and roundy and smooth. So I'm getting ready to take this over to the really, really tiny 3/8 diameter round wheel attachment on the grinder and grind a little round trough right up to this scribe line I have on here. And I'll try to leave a nice crisp ridge right where that scribe line is, so I have a crisp, sharp edge there, and it'll help this little bevel that I've got on the front spacer to stand out a little bit more. Instead of sitting here and trying to freehand this and get right up to my scribe line, if I get it the perfect level, I should just be able to like, and then just grind to the scribe line without having to worry about holding it up or down. Getting it the right level might take a little bit of finicking. To start out with, I think I can put my vise jaws right underneath here because it's about 1 inch thick, and maybe some parallels or something. I finally finished shaping the front spacer. It actually took me quite a few hours to get it completely shaped. There's a lot going on this. It just doesn't have like flat sides on it. We've got a little bevel and then it's got all these like curves and stuff to it. So it took me a while just to get everything roughed in and get it accurate and symmetrical and even all around. And then it took even longer to round everything off because we had like all these bevels and stuff that were meeting up, and then I had to go in and just round it all up with the round wheel. It came out beautifully though. I'm super happy with it. The relation the front spacer has to the sword is exactly what I was going for. I wanted these shapes on the front spacer to mimic the shapes on the ricasso and kind of look like they were of the same tribe, if you will. They're not exactly the same because the ricasso is a lot longer than the front spacer, but I wanted it to look like it went together. Also, in another way, I kind of made the shapes on the pommel similar to the front spacer as well, but they're different. This also has that little bevel at the front, and then just like the front spacer kind of dishes in, the pommel does the same thing, only it's way less dramatic because it's over a long distance. And then the end of the pommel kind of resembles this kind of bulbous area right here. We're finally ready to shape the handle now. So what I did was took the front spacer and the pommel, put the entire handle together, and then I drew with a pencil around the front spacer and the pommel onto the handle. So I know exactly where I need to stop shaping. But in my case, I need to stop about 100 thousandths of an inch before I get to that line because I'm gonna be doing fluting on this handle. And the type of fluting I'm gonna do requires me to leave that extra 100 thousandths. That line's gonna be a good reference though, and then I can take my dividers or my calipers and I can go over to the grinder and I can just grind until I'm about 100 thousandths of an inch away from this line that represents the front spacer and one that represents the pommel. I've also measured off of my sketch to shape the handle similarly to what I have on my sketch. I'm not gonna live or die by that, but it will really get me in the ballpark. And I think we're pretty much ready to go over to the grinder. I'm gonna put a brand new, super fresh 36 grit belt on. You wanna have a nice fresh belt for this because you don't want heat. Heat is the enemy of the interior mammoth ivory. So we wanna eliminate heat and use a fresh belt. We're gonna start shaping this handle. I'm gonna do the profile first and then we'll start rounding and doing all that fun stuff after. I think I'm getting really close with the profile of the handle. And by profile, I'm basically working on this area and this area. That's what I consider to be the profile of the shape. I think I'm getting really close. I wanna check it though, make sure it's all looking symmetrical. So I'm gonna use the old paper trick again. We're just gonna set the handle down on a piece of paper, draw around it with a pencil, and then flip the handle over, and it should go back into the exact same pencil marks if it's symmetrical on both sides. Flip it over, and then we just try to get it all lined up on the pencil marks. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical right now. It needs to be awfully close though, because we're still gonna do quite a bit of shaping and stuff that could affect it later on, so there's no need in wasting a bunch of time getting it absolutely perfect right now. Also, the fluting will probably affect it ever so slightly. That looks pretty good to me. I might wanna ever so slightly, and by slightly, I mean just like sneeze on it a little bit with the grinder right through here. A little bit of a high spot, but that's close enough to where I'll go touch it on the grinder and I don't even need to bring it back to the paper. Ivory with a pencil. At this stage, I'm pretty much only using a pencil on the handle material as well, because sometimes with these materials like fossil mammoth ivory or fossil walrus ivory, sometimes if you use a Sharpie, it can kind of soak into the material and you might actually have to grind off quite a bit in order to get your Sharpie mark out of it. So make sure as you're getting close to your final dimensions, just use a pencil on this stuff to mark things. Don't use a Sharpie. I am done shaping the mammoth ivory handle. It came out beautiful. This sword is really starting to take shape. This last time when I put the handle together, I was getting shivers down my spine looking at this thing because it's so good. I kind of planned on these lines flowing right into the pommel. So this line of the handle kind of dropping off through here just gently flows into the handle and then it swells out right here. And then if you look up at the front spacer, it kind of does the same thing too. the line starts curving in and it kind of meets up with how this deep curve in the front spacer starts out. So it all just really flows to my eye anyway, and I love the way it's looking. I also went over the handle with a little bit of hand sanding, mostly because the handle is going to be like this for a while as I build the scabbard and possibly do the gold inlay and stuff. So I just wanted it to look nice and clean up the grinder marks. So I went over the entire handle just to smooth it out with some 120 grit. We are done shaping the handle, done shaping the front spacer, done shaping the pommel, done shaping the pommel nut. It is time to move on to the guard. A horizontal grinder would make this very easy, I believe, or well, maybe a little bit easier, maybe just a little bit less neck tweaking, because I'm gonna set up that vertical backrest again, I believe is what I'm gonna do. And then we're gonna use that along with the round wheel and shape this guard. Right now, the profile of the guard is pretty much done except for the tips of it. I'll do that very last as far as shaping the very tips of the guard. But what I need to do now is start shaping all this material. It's over 1 inch wide. There's tons of extra metal in here. The very tips of the guard are probably gonna be less than 1/4 inch thick. So I have a lot of material to remove. I'm gonna start out, I believe, on the flat platen and just hog off a bunch of it, get rid of the bulk. And then I'll move over to the round wheel with the vertical jerry-rig backrest thing set up so I can set the guard on this flat spot and just sit there and sculpt the sides of this guard. I also need to do some layout. I'm not sure what layout I need to do, but I need to do it right now while everything's still got flat sides on it, because real soon it's gonna be hard to start doing layout on this guard because there will be no point of references left here in a little bit. So I'm gonna start doing layout on the guard, and once that's done, I'm gonna go over there and start hogging off some steel. But before I do that, it is time for a coffee break. Oh boy, that is cold, and it was the bottom of the pot, and the pot was sitting there for a while, so it's also very burnt flavored. But it's still coffee. I can drink it. I don't know where to begin on this thing. I'm done doing the layout on the guard. I covered the surface with Dykem and then scribed a number of lines. I have one line in the very center of the guard, and that's just gonna be there for reference as I go. And then I have a couple lines that are about 200 thousandths of an inch apart, and those are for the tip area. I also lightly went over it with a Sharpie on the inside of the guard here, and that's just to help me quickly reference some of the bulk material I need to remove as I go over to the flat platen. Everything's ready to go. I'm gonna set up the grinder with a nice 36 grit belt, and we'll start hogging some of this off. May even go over to the bandsaw. I'll have to think about that. I have the guard completely shaped. Let me tell you, this thing is beautiful. I'm loving the way this sword is looking. The guard was the last thing that we had to really get shaped on here, and now it's really starting to look like a complete sword. You could almost call this thing finished like it is, but we still have tons of embellishments to add. But it's virtually, for all intents and purposes, a pretty much completed sword as far as functional, finished shaped swords go. We still have gold inlay to do, bluing, etching, and all that, but getting this guard shaped, I spent all day pretty much grinding on this thing. It was a pretty big challenge to get these tips shaped. I kind of had to freehand the tip areas. I did it over and over again. I used the paper method to make sure I was getting them symmetrical on each side. It cut off so much weight. This guard was like a couple of pounds, and now it's down to about 7 ounces, I believe. So the entire weight of the sword is now 3 pounds, 15.5 ounces, and it's getting right in there where I wanted it to be. Nice and light, feels really good. The balance point is about 5.5 inches in front of the guard, which is right where I was shooting for. Maybe have it move forward a little bit, but we're still gonna lose a little more weight as I do hand sanding on everything, as I flute the handle, as I put the flutes on the end of the pommel. That'll get rid of a little bit of weight there too, so it's gonna be perfect. Before we finish out all the embellishments and actually get the sword completed, I actually want to stop and make the scabbard next. The reason I want to do that is because right now nothing's completely finished out as far as hand sanding and everything goes, so I'm not worried about scratching anything currently. So we can work on making the scabbard without worrying about scratching up the blade or scuffing the handle or the bluing or the gold or anything like that. So I'm gonna stop right here on the sword and make the scabbard, get that all the way finished up, and then we'll move back to the sword and get all the embellishments, the gold inlay, the hand sanding, the bluing, the etching. We'll do all that after the scabbard's finished. But that is a topic for another episode. I will see you in the next video. May the forge be with you. Bye-bye.